Well, is that big enough? What's going on, everybody? Feder here from 3D Print SOS. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are checking out this, the Mingda Magician Max. A little bit earlier, we also checked out the Mingda Magician X, which is the smaller machine. In fact, I really loved printing a bunch of parts on it for this, our fully 3D printed RC crawler project that we did. I printed a lot of the interior parts and a lot of the chassis parts itself, and all the parts fit. That printer was actually really good. I enjoyed it. If you guys want to check that out, there'll be a card popping up above me here, so definitely take a look at that video if the Mingda Magician X is something that you're interested in. This is essentially the Magician X's big brother. They took that recipe of the Mingda Magician X and just made it larger, took it to the max, if you will, as cheesy as that is. It's a similar recipe to what Creality did with their CR10 and their Ender line. The CR10 is essentially just a larger version of the Ender, and it's been a great success. It's a decent printer, and there's a lot of things going for that machine. So I guess we're going to find out if taking that recipe and making it larger is a good idea. How much larger? This thing can print in a 320 by 320 by 400 build area. So that is absolutely massive. So you should be able to print some really large things. In fact, printers of this size, I typically want to put on a larger nozzle. So that's something that we'll experiment with on this particular machine. So what we're going to do is the same thing we usually do. We're going to take this thing out of the box. I'm going to show you what it's like to assemble, and then we're going to print from the SD card. And then I'll jump into Cura after that, and we'll slice up some of our own files. For example, we are going to print more of this. This is our 3D printed RC airplane. We're working together with IIIDMax Xtreame PLA to get it done, and we are almost ready. There's so many parts over here, using so many different machines and so many different settings, but we need a little bit more. There's a couple more loose ends we need, and then everything printed should be ready, and we should be able to get into building it, and then hopefully finally flying it, and hopefully not instantly into the ground. Wish me luck on that one. All right, I'm really excited to tear into this thing and see what it's all about. It should be an absolutely massive machine, if you can't tell by the size of this box already. So, all right, let's check it out. All right, I got my blade, so let's open this behemoth. Definitely had me up on my tippies there. All right, I forgot. This is using the same like white foam as the Mingda Magician X. I remember the Magician X unboxing was interesting because that foam was everywhere. Let's see if this one does the same. Yep, it's definitely going to be the same. Before I take this machine out, I'm going to grab a vacuum and vacuum some of this out because it's going to be everywhere. Here, let's take some things out before that I see it that aren't coated. All right, so this is the same as the Magician X. This is their spool holder. It kind of slides onto the top of the printer, makes it nice and easy. We have some sample filament. We have a full-size wrench. We have good size tools. We have an extra nozzle. Let's see what size we got. It's using a V6 style nozzle. It's a 0.4 millimeter nozzle. We have just a tiny amount of hardware because the assembly on this thing should be really easy. And we have a full-size 4 gigabyte SD card. All right, this is the little door that goes on top of the machine where you can put all your tools and store a couple things. We have our power cable. All right, it's vacuum time. It actually doesn't even look like I can get some of that. So I guess we're just gonna have to make a mess. Mingda, if you're watching this, you know, this type of packaging is really great for keeping the printer safe. It really is, I'm not gonna deny it. But man, is it a mess. All right, so here's what it's looking like on my end. As you can see here, the lead screws are coated in grease, but now they're coated in grease and also this foam. Take a look at this other side. If you look inside of this connector, that connector is pretty packed. Like, we have to clean that now. And then more grease and more foam. And it doesn't really stop there, honestly. The whole thing is coated. So it's exactly the same as what's happened on the Magician X. You know, some might say that it's just nitpicking, and it kind of is, but at the same time, it's just a slightly unpleasant unboxing. You know what I mean? And I think maybe it could be avoided with a different set. I know obviously you can't change these, they're already produced, they're already packaged, but maybe if you're doing another run, I don't know, just something. It's just a little unpleasant, that's all. All right, let me figure out how I'm going to take this out. I think the best way for me to be able to do anything with this machine is to set this thing down and take the parts out. So let me go ahead and do that. I think I can easily say that this is one of the tallest printers that I've definitely had here at the shop. But yeah, outside of that stuff being everywhere, oh boy, it's even worse on the side. Hold, please. Outside of that, let's see, our hot end is very loose, but we'll fix that. Looks like there's been some changes made here. This little screw is a little bit different from the X, and the little washer is as well. Our dual gear extruder. I definitely liked this system, the way it worked, and looks like there's a new spring. Yeah, this one works a little bit better. Very nice. Easier to put on. Looks like we have a plastic shroud here. Interesting. Okay. I do recall seeing a video or two about the plastic Magician X that had a few issues of its own. Hopefully that doesn't translate to this one. I guess we'll find out. Let me get the rest of the machine. Wow. That is massive. I have a wide angle lens on right now, so it's kind of hard to see just how gargantuan this is from over there. But let me tell you, a lot of my printers here can sit on top of this thing and be completely engulfed. As far as installation goes, from here, or assembly rather, it looks to be almost exactly the same. The top gets set right into these channels that are already here, and then you screw in one on the bottom and two on each side, and then it's done. The bed itself mounts with this nice plug here, and it actually looks like you actually bolt it down as well, so that's pretty nice. That's definitely a step up from my original Magician X that I had. So that's a cool little feature. Outside of that, everything looks about the same. Has these nice wheels to get the belts nice. The screen's covered. Has USB-C, regular USB, and a full-size card reader. Not too bad. Because it's so similar, and because the installation is technically extremely easy, let's go ahead and just throw it together while I have you here. Oh, that's right. I can't because I have to thoroughly clean this. I'll be right back. Alright, I think I got all of the foam off the lead screws, or at least as much as I could. No, now that I've spun it, I see a couple more pieces. Hopefully I'm just over exaggerating this thing. Like I said, it's not that crazy of an issue really. It's just that I've only ever had to do this on one other machine, and the other machine was the Mingda Magician X. But here is the assembly. Ready? And there you go. It's almost all assembled. There we go. Let's spin it to this direction first. There we go. So we are just going to plug in this motor. Click. That's easy. Let's go ahead and go on this side, and let's click it in on this side. There it goes. And then we have one more plug, and that's the main plug that carries all the power and everything that we need to the hot end. Let's see, that should just plug right in like this. There's only one way it can go. There's a little channel, and then there's also this little clip that kind of holds everything in place, just like that. That's it. So the only other thing we have to do is plug in the bed. Like I mentioned before, this thing looks like it attaches directly to the bed as well. This clicks in at first, so click, that's in. Of course, I flinged everything everywhere. All right, let's go ahead and get our hardware. There should be 4 smaller pieces like this one right here. Those go on the side. Let's go ahead and button those up. I'm just gonna move it to the edge to make things a little bit easier here. I'm not going all the way quite yet. I want to get the bottom one in as well. So I'm coming completely off the edge of the table now. There should be one hole that this can go into. All right, we're gonna kind of get this one pretty tight. All right, and then we can tighten these two. And you don't need to tighten these like crazy. They just need to be hand tight. All right, that's that. Let's flip it to this side and repeat the same process. All right, just a few steps left. Let's go back to the bed connector, and we have 2 little bolts for this one. Okay, nice and easy. Just something I noticed, the bed actually does go past where the back of the machine is. So if you were setting this up somewhere, make sure you don't just put this machine up against something in the back. I know it's going to require a lot of space, but just something. Wow, this thing is just so, so huge. Let's see, where should we put this? There we go. Ready, and done. Let's go ahead and just finish up. We have our little window, power, SD card. Oh, and of course we can't forget our hot end wobble. Let's go ahead and take care of that. So what I'm doing here is I need to get to the bottom of our eccentric nuts over here, and actually this x-axis is belted, so I'm just going to grab by the belt here and move it up. And as you can see, I still have a ton of the little foam stuck in the grooves. But what we're going to do is we're going to take our wrench, and on the bottom wheel here there should be an eccentric nut, and I'm going to turn it slightly. There we go, and the movement is all gone, and now it is rigid. Let me go ahead and double check. I'm gonna undo. Yep, got some movement. Give it just enough. There we go. And that is nice and tight. So another thing that I'm going to do is while holding this, I'm going to give this bolt a little bit of a crank and see if it tightens. All right. So that's been just a couple minutes. I'll speed through some of these parts so it's not the most boring video you've ever seen. But that's the assembly, and we should be ready to get cracking on some test prints. So let's grab some filament, right?
All right, so there it is, the Magician Max. And yeah, this is easily the biggest thing I've ever printed. This was a 16-hour print. I made sure that we were getting around 1 millimeter in terms of the thickness, and actually the final thickness here is 1.28, so it's 1.2 millimeters thick. Listen to this. It's like a drum. I don't know what I'm going to use this for, but this thing is cool. The only problem I'm going to have, and I don't know this yet, but the problem that I think I'm going to have in a second is taking this thing off. I've printed plenty of vase-style trash cans and stuff, and I've broken some of them trying to get it off of sticky glass. And one of the stickiest glass printers I've ever had was the Magician X. And this one is not far off. The glass is super sticky. As you saw, some of the other prints, I kind of had to like chisel them off. So we'll see what's going to happen here. I'm not going to have you sit through me trying to figure that out. I'll just do it real quick and then we'll talk about it. I really hope I don't break this. This thing is really durable feeling. But still, I really don't want to break it. So let me take this thing off of here, and then we'll finish this conversation. All right, so just bear with me. This is going to require some bubbly. All right, wish me luck. Wow, the static is crazy. It's popping my mic. Let me de-static myself. Wow. Let me try to put this thing in perspective on how big it is. No, it's probably not good enough. I mean... yeah. Looks like we had a little bit left over of the red and blue filament in there, but that's okay. This thing is like a giant bongo. Well, looks like I have myself a pretty large trash bin for the studio here. Well, as always, I have made a little bit of a list while I was working with this machine. I've had it running for about 5 days straight. I haven't had much hiccups. The only hiccups were actually on camera, like for example this print, which looks really good, and I love this color of filament, by the way. This is the brand new filament by IIIDMax. This is PLA Plus. I think it's called Key Lime.
I think I just put it away, but it's called key lime. It's really nice. But the problem was that this is a test print from the machine, and it looks like it fused itself to the raft. It's kind of interesting. This printer has automatic bed leveling. It's really well done, actually, the leveling itself, and yet they still put a raft on the test print. So interesting. But it did fuse together, but the print quality itself of this piece is spectacular. I mean, it looks absolutely perfect outside of the obvious. We'll talk about some of the other prints in a second. Let me go through my list. Just like some of the other machines we've been doing the past couple times, let's go over some of the stuff that kind of irks me a bit, okay? Let's get those out of the way. And I think they are almost exactly the same as the previous machine, the Magician X. The bed is just too sticky. I know that's kind of a crazy thing to complain about. We always kind of want it to be really sticky, but this one specifically, I'm actually surprised I got this off, is really, really sticky. Just like the Magician X, it's the same exact compound, and when this bed gets hot, I mean, you can touch it. It gets physically sticky. To be honest, I haven't put glue on it, but glue might be, even though I hate doing it, it might be the way to get just another layer underneath of this super sticky bed, so that you don't break your prints, because I've definitely broken some on the Magician X. And actually, once I put a PEI bed on my Magician X, it was great. It leveled really easily because it's just fully automated. There's no knobs anywhere. And this is the same recipe, just bigger. If this printer with a PEI bed, maybe Mingda, maybe that's something that you guys can offer as either an upgrade or just an accessory that you can purchase, I think it'll take this to the next level, because it just would make taking the prints off so much easier. And yes, I've definitely let them cool. This one has been sitting for almost a full day now because I just couldn't get to it. So this was definitely cool. I've had to take off these beds and put them in the fridge before, just to be able to take off the prints. So it's really sticky. Things are going to stick to this bed a little bit too much in my example. I am printing some of these prints are special, so they are printing at about 230, which is really hot for PLA. But most of the time I stick to between 200 and 205, and I stick to 60 on the bed. There might actually be better to go a little bit cooler on this particular bed. Maybe 55 is a number to try on the Magician and the Magician the Magician X and the Magician Max. But that's the number one thing that I wrote. Actually, to be honest with you, there's two. There's two things I don't like about the machine. The bed is too sticky, and the packaging it comes in. I'm still, days later, finding the little tiny pieces of foam on the machine and around my floor. It just, that packaging material is just not fun. So just those two things, and honestly, those are pretty minor things. Packaging, that's hard to complain about, especially because that stuff will really, really protect this machine in shipping. So, you clean it up once and then you never kind of see it again. So there is that, so keep that in mind. Let's see what else I have. It's literally just those things. I do have kind of like a sideways note. It looks like I have two of those there, so let's go over those. I said it should come with a larger nozzle. Hear me out on this. It comes with a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, and it comes with a second 0.4 millimeter nozzle. I think it would be awesome if the second nozzle that came with it was a 0.6 or 0.5 millimeter nozzle. This is a massive machine, and to be able to print with a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, this thing will take forever. This would have been, if this was 16 hours printing at a 0.35 or 0.36 layer height, you could imagine how long this would have taken on a 0.4 millimeter nozzle. It would be easily twice as long to print something this big. I mean, it's literally a full spool. I mean, there's about a quarter of an inch left of winding on that spool. So yeah, I think it's great with a 0.4. I think it'd be amazing with a 0.6, and that's what I'm going to keep on this machine. Yes, you lose a tiny bit of quality, but you can always keep the layers lower to get that quality boost, and it gives you that boost of speed that I think a machine of this size needs. So that's not a negative, not a positive, just I guess my personal opinion on the matter. The other thing that I wrote down in terms of just the sideways note is the spool holder is really high on just two extrusions. So hear me out, it's the same as the Magician X, and I understand it does work. technically speaking, I see no degradation of quality whatsoever in the higher level, so just keep that in mind while I talk about this. But still, having a spool that high, I mean, it's well above me right now, because this thing is massively tall. Having the spool that high, a full spool's weight, sometimes I get the wider ones, and it just, I think in my personal opinion, it's a lot of weight to sit up there. Obviously it's a direct drive, so having the spool down low would be kind of tough. You would need probably a PTFE tube going like through the top handle and going down to kind of like reroute the filament. But still, this isn't the boxed in machine. It doesn't have any kind of you know, strengthening to the frame at all, so it's just 2 extrusions and then a giant spool at the very top of a 400+ millimeter height. So just something to note. Like I said, I don't really see it being too much of an issue, but it's definitely going to cause some kind of an issue if you're trying to print something really intricate. Obviously, this isn't the two of an intricate piece. So just keep that in mind. Spool, I think that's kind of, you know, neither here or there. That could just be nitpicking. All right, and then the positive stuff. Super easy assembly. Yeah, you guys saw, I mean, I even talked through the assembly on this machine instead of just speeding through it. You put this on top, you put in a couple bolts, you plug in a couple plugs. I mean, it's really, really easy. Quiet. The fans are not too loud and the whole machine is near silent. That is true. When I've walked down the steps to get down to the basement, I don't hear this machine until I'm all the way over here. Even my dehumidifier is louder than this thing. So yeah, it's definitely on the quieter side. I mean, I'm standing right next to it. There is some humming going on, keep that in mind. You still hear some fans, and it doesn't fully turn off. The fans will always run, but they're not the most loud fans that I've heard, and the machine is pretty quiet. It has silent steppers on all the axes, so that's really nice. Presets in Cura, easy to get printing. That's also true. This is definitely one of the easiest machine, along with its younger brother, the Magician X, to fully set up and get going. In Cura, there's a drop down to pick Mingda. From that drop down, you can pick any of their machines, and there's presets already installed, and they print totally fine. I did make a few tweaks here and there, just the things that I always put on, like I changed where the Z is. I like to put it in the back sometimes, or I change it to the sharpest corner. I use the mono for the bottom order, the way that it prints. If you type in mono in the search for Cura, you can just check that monotonic order, I think it's called. I'm probably butchering that term. There's just a couple little things here and there that I switch from the standard profiles, but really not that much. Everything else is the same. Sometimes I mess with the heights, the heat, just like generally what everyone else would do when they're messing with the filament. Do I have anything else on this list? Uses V6 style nozzle, so they're readily available. I threw on a Zodiac nozzle that I had. I actually just heard that Zodiac got bought out by E3D. Congrats. That's probably why I haven't heard back from them in a while. I had plans to showcase a lot of their products, but we kind of lost communication there, and now I know why. Congrats on the sale, and I think the company is going to go somewhere with E3D. And that nozzle is fantastic, and it printed everything here perfectly fine. Although any other V6 style nozzle at a 0.6 millimeter height, millimeter width, would work really good for this machine, in my personal opinion. If you don't want to go all the way to 6, then 0.5 is probably an also good fit. All you have to do in Cura is to go to the drop down in the top of the menus where you go to the printer, go to the nozzle, and then just change the nozzle size, and that's it. So it's very easy to do in the setup, and you can swap them really easily, as you saw in my video there. So yeah, not even that many notes, because there's not too much to talk about. It printed everything that I've thrown at it. It printed it really well. I filled the entire build plate with parts here for our 3D printed airplane, and I'm happy to say that all of our prints are complete. So now we can merge our electronics and our prints together. I have to clean up some of the prints, glue everything together. There's quite a lot of work to do for that, and I'll definitely tackle that after a few other videos that I want to get to. But as far as the quality of everything that came out, I have very, very little to complain about. I think it did as well as the previous smaller machine. So to answer that question I kind of asked beforehand, does it work to just expand the machine larger? In this particular case, yeah, it totally worked. I don't see any kind of anything sticking out as a weakness, even though the machine is bigger. Only the fact that there's just more to do. There was a tiny bit of stringing on some of these prints, as you can see kind of right there. Here, let me see if I can focus right there. But that's really easy to take out with just some heat. It bridged everything perfectly fine, so the cooling's good. It has dual-sided cooling. Yeah, it did really, really good with this Xtreame PLA. It's just so clean. I mean, look at that gleam on there. Perfect finish on the PLA. Let's talk about this. So this is another just absolute mass, and it's hilarious that it gets dwarfed by this. Yeah, that fits all the way in there. But yeah, this didn't come out perfectly, unfortunately. I guess the angle that this printed at, some of these parts, just the overhangs were just not the most successful. So it's not absolutely beautiful in some of these parts, but the bottom, the top, all the sides up here, like for example 12 here, just looks great. And I both like and don't like the way that the filament ended up coming out at the end, which is kind of interesting. I do think it's interesting the way that the color changed. It almost looks like maybe I tried to do that on purpose. But at the end of the day, I think what happened was in Cura, it changes direction of where it starts printing, whether it's because of some of the supports that were on here or for whatever reason. And you can tell where it changed direction, here, here, and down here. I think if it kept it all and it managed to keep this color scheme going throughout, I think it would have been even cooler. But still, I think this is an awesome D20. It's going to look really nice on my shelf. And yeah, so I think the worst side is probably 19 over here. It just kind of had a little bit of trouble, even with the supports, with the overhangs. This was also printed, I think I did a little bit too high of a layer height because I knew this was going to be a really long print. I probably did it a little bit too high, and it was printing kind of fast. So yeah, I still think this was a huge success of a print. I mean, let me get you close on some of the stuff that didn't have a wild overhang. I mean, look at that quality. That's just amazing. And what a fun filament this is. It really is just exciting to be able to have something like this where it's not actually extruded by anything else. Just one filament, and it gives you some really cool and interesting effects. So generally speaking, this D20, in my opinion, is pretty cool. It's going to look fantastic on my shelf. There we go. Sorry about that. It's going to look fantastic on my shelf, and I do a lot of gaming, a lot of board games and tabletops. I've designed them before. I have a few titles, so fits right there with my other shelf that's kind of off the screen here. So basically, if this was all too long and you didn't read and you want a summary, I really like the machine, just like I did with the Magician X. Its only weakness is also its strength, where I think the build plate in my particular case is a little bit too sticky for my liking, and I think PEI would transform this machine greatly. So yeah, if you're looking for a big machine that's extremely easy to set up, you literally need to do nothing except put it together for 10 minutes and just get acquainted with the machine. Yeah, getting this thing leveled even after the nozzle switch was just literally one button. It's so easy to do. Yeah, good job, Mingda. I think you guys are making pretty good machines. And I like that it's just not a direct copy of another copy of another copy. It's definitely its own thing. Lots of ways to connect your machine to it. The touchscreen is sharper than a lot of other touchscreens. Like, it's not a super low quality touchscreen. It's actually decent. But yeah, I could just keep rambling on it, so I'm just going to stop myself now. Anyway, I think that's all for me, guys. Please check out the links that I've prepared for you from everything you see in this video down below. They help the channel greatly. Thank you guys for being on Discord. Thank you to all my Patreons. Your support is amazing. And I've just launched YouTube. You can join me on YouTube, become a YouTube member. I'm still trying to figure all that out, but there is a join button. So if you guys want to support the channel, check that out as another option for you guys to be able to be a part of this channel. And keep an eye out for some future videos. I'm going to do a couple smaller videos coming after this one. We still have to do the direct drive finale. I have a bunch of little tiny or smaller items to look at that are really fun. But yeah, lots of stuff coming. Specifically, I'm talking about a giveaway. I'm not going to reveal too much about that because there'll be a separate video. But yeah, keep an eye on the channel and the Discord. Alright guys, I think that's all for me. As always, I'll see you down in the comments. Later.